All right. So today we have a panel that's going to be talking about different experiences throughout the Palestinian movement, who have experienced the genocide firsthand, who are U.S. citizens, families from the West Bank who've experienced apartheid firsthand, and from everybody, we're going to be hearing about how they've been participating within the movement, and as well as what they are asking all of us to do to continue standing in solidarity for Palestinian liberation. So what we're going to do first is we're going to have Zahed Rahman, who is a nurse who served in Gaza, who has a slideshow. So he'll come up and present his slideshow first, and then we're going to all come up here together, and you're going to get to hear from the rest of the speakers. And afterwards, make sure that if you have any questions about anything, keep those in mind, because we're going to try and have a long Q&A so that you guys can ask them whatever you want to get that valuable and unique firsthand experience through struggle and resistance from Palestinians, from allies, and throughout the movement. So Zahid, if you want to come up.
This is just a really short video. Obviously, it's not real, but it's based on a real story. But it gives everyone a kind of an understanding as to the events that led up to where we are today. Nope, that's not it.
شوف هذا الفيلم. هذا ثالث مرة بطل تبعه كتير حلو، شغل ظريف
كتير صح.
أكشف. شوكولاتة يا بنت الحلال، شوكولاتة. ها ها شوكولاتة هبلة. ها اضحك اضحك شوي.
أشوف
شوفي ما أحلاه
يا حبيبي، حبيبي قلبي روحي.
شوفي لي إياها هيك منيحة.
مايلة، خدها على يمينك شوي.
هيك أحسن.
ايه هيك تمام يا ماما. يلا يلا
سوف أقضي عليه، سوف أكسره.
يا الله. شوف شوف شو عملت. ليش وسخت الكنب؟ روح يلا روح من هان يلا.
كمان مرة كمان مرة. يلا 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 تماما كما تشاهدون. ثورة إسرائيلية عنيفة.
يا
الله نعم الوكيل، الله يهدهم.
على قص قصة اسمه قصة.
Thank you guys very much. You guys can keep the lights this way. Don't no, leave the lights, because there's some of the slides that are, a little bit dark. I want to take this opportunity for basically, I want to thank everyone for inviting me here. And, I've been here since maybe roughly 10 o'clock this morning. I've been listening to all the speakers. And I have to admit one thing. I don't think I've ever felt unqualified to be in a room speaking in front of a group of amazing people like yourselves. So to all the veterans here, for everything that you guys have done, acknowledging that you guys, were participating in something that has caused human tragedy throughout time. I applaud you guys for making the effort to make things right. So this is to you guys. Thank you guys so much. That being said, my name is Zahid Rahman. I am a critical care nurse. I've been doing this for 16 years. I was never a humanitarian until I actually went to Gaza for the first time. Something that always makes people wonder, well, who am I and why am I here? I'm a nobody, right? I was telling somebody earlier, I have a face made for radio. I have the physique of like melted ice cream. I'm pretty sure a lot of the guys here in the wheelchairs could probably outrun me. My blue passport that I carry gave me the privilege to experience the genocide in Gaza firsthand. The reality is that the world has moved on, but Gaza has not. The headlines have shifted. Epstein, Iran, elections, markets, Mamdani, Abdul Sayed. The bombing has slowed, but the suffering has not. People are still trapped, over 2 million people with nowhere to go. 2 million people still hungry, and survival is still a daily fight. Hospitals are barely standing, care is limited, fragile, and the healthcare system is collapsing. Even in the ceasefire, there isn't peace. People are still dying. It's been what, 8, 9 months, and people are with the ceasefire, and they're still attacking. Just yesterday, there was a whole family that was annihilated. But the reality is that attention is a choice, but so is silence. Gaza did not end, unfortunately, just the coverage did. So just a little bit about myself. This is an organization that I created. You guys don't have to take a picture of it, but this is an organization that I started after I went to Gaza for the first time. It's just a NGO, 501c3, and what we do is that we currently are just doing food, water, and anything to sustain life. The long-term goal is for us to do educational stuff, rebuilding infrastructure, and so on and so forth. But yeah, that's just a little bit about me. The one thing that I do want to mention, as far as a disclaimer, is that a lot of these images are mine, but some of them were obtained after I left Gaza. So if you see a yellow sun anywhere in the top right corner, then that is basically mine. Sorry, I apologize. I said it wrong. The top right corner sun reflects that I borrowed that from someone else, and it's not mine. I'm really nervous because I don't do public speaking, so I apologize. And this clicker does not work. Anyway, I know, man. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. So, if we want, can we move to, just in the interest of time, I want to kind of go forward a few slides, if you don't mind. Yep, skip this one too. I mean, is there anyone here that doesn't know what's going on in Gaza? Right? Just in the interest of time, I want to kind of move things along. We obviously know that there's a genocide happening. We obviously know that there's constant drones flying above. There's missiles, there's rockets, there's F-16s, F-35s, there's bombers, and there's children that are being murdered, attacked on the daily. Unfortunately, families are being destroyed, houses are being burned. Now, whether you're in Gaza or whether you're in the West Bank, you're being occupied, you're being apartheid, and you're being genocided. That's just the reality of it. So this is just a documentation that I want you guys to look at. Next slide, please. This is just an excerpt of that form that we had to all sign as humanitarian workers. Basically, it says that we are acknowledging the fact that we're going to go to Gaza. Our government, now keep in mind, this is a US-based NGO that's going overseas abroad to provide humanitarian work. And we were asked to sign this as an acknowledgement of risk, meaning none of us will be guaranteed safety. not by our government, not by any other government. And if we have to leave, that there is no evacuation plan for us in place. We could face anything from kidnapping, abduction, up to and including amputation and or death and disease. Next slide, please. So the first time I went, this was just some of the medications I was able to take. This is when the Rafah crossing was open. I took almost $40,000 worth of pharmaceutical drugs that did not include opioids, for obvious reasons. And I took surgical supplies. Next slide, please. This is a slide that I want you guys to pay attention to. So when we first arrived in Cairo during my first visit, at the WHO, the World Health Organization, they did a security briefing, and a part of the security briefing was this slide. Now, if you look at points number 2 and 3, right? Number 2 says the guest house and place of work should be deconflicted, which we all know is crap because all hospitals have been attacked. There's not a single standing hospital in all of Gaza Strip that has not been attacked at least once. And the other point was that movements must be either coordinated or notified. This is instructions given to U.S. organizations or international NGOs that are going into Gaza, most of which carry some form of blue passport. And we are restricted to movement in Gaza, telling us, hey, listen, you guys can't leave. You guys can't go from point A to point B without letting someone know. If those restrictions are enforced upon the Western world, just imagine what they have to do in Palestine. Next slide, please. This is a short video of our convoy that was going from Cairo into Rafah from the Egyptian side. And you can see hundreds of trucks either parked on the street or on the side, waiting. And this was back in March of 2024. They were waiting to gain entry, to gain access. The perishable foods, after a certain amount of time, because they all expire, they would be rerouted to be used elsewhere. But the non-perishables would wait there for as long as they possibly could until they were forced to leave. Next slide, please. This is a very short video of the team that I went to Gaza with. In here, this is European Gaza Hospital. This hospital today is a military outpost. The people that were there, that were working under gunfire, right? They were forced out. They were forced to leave. They were forced to take their patients and just go. During my time there in Gaza, this time a European Gaza hospital, I saw displaced family members. These family members came from, all parts of Gaza, and they said, okay, listen, this is a hospital. This is going to be a safe place. This is where we can get some refuge and be with our families until this is over. This is still early on in the war, March of 2024. I don't even like calling it a war. This is a genocide. But of the many things that I did see there, the people of Gaza always showed faith, resilience, and gratitude in every aspect of the word. When you walk throughout the hospital, there was like this profound sense of weariness, a kind that comes when a place meant for temporary healing becomes a permanent home out of necessity. You can see young men working on tangled webs of power strips and chargers, crowds huddled around water trucks and plastic jugs, repurposed bottles. Their focus was intense. It was in this environment that water was not just a utility, but a victory. The healthcare dedication and fortitude can be seen when the doctors and nurses moving through the overcrowded wards with a sense of purpose. We can see them performing surgeries, checking on patients, some of whom were very young, amongst the makeshift tents and hanging laundry that now fill the hospital with clinical spaces. You see individuals sleeping on thin mats in the hallways, their few belongings tucked in plastic bags. Families slept in hallways, often separated by nothing more than a thin sheet. You can see girls by the elevator, boys playing in dirt, a toddler that was just sitting in a room made of blankets on a stairwell. And their ability To find moments of play or distraction in a place of such immense suffering is both heartbreaking and a testament to their spirit. And then outside the hospital, you saw a landscape of loss, a dirt lot filled with trash. You would see a lone donkey just grazing in scraps, and endless rows of white tents. This is a community that was stripped of its privacy, comfort, but they were still refusing to give up on the basic acts of caring for one another and surviving yet another day. So, in the interest of time, can we move forward, please? So these are images that were, for the lack of a better phrase, they were graffitied onto the walls of the temporary structures that were there at the hospital. You know, it would say anything from "Welcome to Gaza," where everything you love, where everything you have is normal, or hashtag Gaza, food, water, and a place to sleep. These are dreams from us. Next slide. Suddenly, we left our houses and now we live in the street. Last one. Hashtag Gaza, don't give up. Maybe you'll die. You just got to, for a moment, just think what was the person that wrote this? Her name is Amira. What was going through her head? What was she feeling? What was she experiencing when she decided to verbalize these statements? Next slide. With continuing talking about faith, resilience, and gratitude, on my first day at the hospital, European Gaza Hospital, does anyone here recognize what this machine is? X-ray. It's a portable X-ray machine. Fantastic. So the kid that's pushing it, he's 14. He is now the X-ray tech of the hospital. Reason being, because the other person that was doing it, or the other group of people that were doing it, were all murdered. So this young man quickly learned the ropes of how to be a tech, an X-ray tech, and did his job responsibly and immensely. Next slide. And you can see here, kids just wanting to be kids. Because there's a lack of drinking water, you can see these kids on the back of a donkey cart carrying a barrel of water from point A to point B, but at the same time, still being kids and just goofing off. What you don't hear in the background is the drones, you know, that were constantly buzzing while we were there. Next slide. This is probably one of my most emotional stories. So you guys can see from the vest that I was wearing, there's a logo. That logo is for an organization called Palestinian American Medical Associates. That's who I went with. And there was another organization called Heal Palestine that was doing an event on the hospital campus this day. And they said, hey, Zahid, you got to come and join in on the party. I mean, it wasn't really much of a party. There were still drones in the background, but in order to drown out the drones, there was some music, there was some singing, there was obviously some face painting, there was a clown. And this young girl was running around, but everybody from Heal Palestine was keeping a very strange eye on her. And I thought that was peculiar. Now, for those, I don't think I mentioned it actually. I'm not Arab. I'm Indian, right? So I don't speak Arabic. Luckily, I came across someone from Heal Palestine who happened to be from my hometown of Jersey. And he happens to be Palestinian, and he was there with Heal Palestine. I said, hey, man, what's going on? We made a little bit of small talk. And I asked him ultimately, I said, what is up with this girl? Why is she wearing this bright yellow vest? And why is everyone from Heal Palestine keeping an eye on her? And he said, you wouldn't believe from the looks of her, from her smiling, that just 3 days ago, she buried her entire family. Her parents, her grandparents, her aunts, her uncles, her siblings, her cousins, everyone. So something I learned while I was there is that Arab families tend to live together, right? Not necessarily under the same roof, but in a very small proximity. So in Gaza City, which was central Gaza, they had a family over like I don't know, 300 people, 400 people, and they lived in high rises, so everyone stayed together. So they took out the building, and she was the lone survivor that they were able to get from under the rubble. So Heal Palestine at that time decided to take on her responsibility. So naturally, as an American, privileged American who doesn't have an understanding as to what the real world looks like and what's really happening in Gaza, I immediately said, why don't I take her back with me? So, so I asked my friend from Heal Palestine to translate for me. And I said, hey, man, let's go talk to her and let's see what she says. And he said, Zahid, she'll never come. I said, why? He's like, bro, even if she wanted to go, someone here would keep her and they wouldn't let her go. I said, man, let's go talk to her. So, all right. So we went there, we talked to her, made a little bit of small talk. And then after the small talk, I said, I found out that she was 10 years old. I forget her name. May God forgive me. I found out that she's 10 years old, and I found out that she wants to be a doctor. Right. So I said to her, I said, this is great. I'm going to use this. I said, hey, why don't you come back to the States with me? I'll put you through school. You can be a doctor, and you can come back and you can serve your country. You can serve your people. She said to me, why would I leave? This is my land. I said, look around. Look around. There's no institution right now that can give you the education that you need to be a doctor. There's no safety. I said, if you leave with me, not knowing that if it was going to be possible or not, I said, come back. And she said, look, I'm not worried about my family. They are all shaheed. Shaheed meaning they are martyrs. Martyrs is the highest status that a Muslim can get when they are deceased. So she wasn't worried about them, which I understood. I said, okay. She said, if I'm meant to be a doctor, God will provide a way, a means for me to be a doctor. I'm also not worried. Then she said something to me. She said, what I am worried about is the rest of humanity who's watching this and not lifting a finger to stop it. Are you ready to answer for yourself? And she's 10 years old. And mind you, I discovered this about Palestinians while I was there. Even a 10-year-old boy, girl, hell, even an 8-year-old boy or girl will definitely have more courage, more strength, more dignity than a majority of humanity that I've met, especially in America. And this is not to disrespect anyone here. So I just want you to be very clear about this. Next slide. So that same hospital I was telling you about, European Gaza Hospital, this is the day that they had to evacuate the hospital. Next slide. So those hallways that were once filled with patients, families living in the hallways that were separated by sheets had to be evacuated. Now those same hallways were empty. That same ICU that you saw me filmed in was now also empty. This hospital is now a Israeli outpost. Next slide.
I'm here from European Gaza Hospital. They attack the hospital right now. I'm here at European Gaza Hospital and they attack the hospital right now. Situation very difficult. Can you see all? My department right now. I see the department. There is the patient, baby, intubated, and another one. Now I'm looking at the ICU patient here and here. Look at that.
Pause this, please. Pause this. So just so I can make the distinction between the two videos, the one on the left where you see the food and all this stuff, this was during my first trip in March 2024. It's the same nurse that was sitting there. She was making the bread, the manaish. She was making that. And then, that's when I met her. I became friends with her. The video on the right is when the hospital was being attacked right before they were forced to evacuate. That's when she was actively working. And I don't know if you guys saw in the video on the right, there was two ICU patients, but they were both minors. They were both children, and they were intubated. And one of the little details that I'm not sure if you were able to pick up on is that the hospital beds didn't have any sheets. They were literally laying on the rubber because the sheets were all used for other necessities of life. Next slide. This was shortly after I came back. This was at the same hospital when they had a strike, and unfortunately, all these young children were slaughtered. Next slide. And I apologize for the graphic nature of these pictures. This is something that I witnessed in March of 25. This was in front of me. I was at Aqsa Hospital in central Gaza at Deir al-Balah, and the hospital was bombed. And once the dust settled and we were able to see what was going on after we were all shook and stuff, the victims started coming in immediately. And one of them happened to be this 2-year-old child. I don't know if any of you guys have kids, grandkids, but this could have been any one of us. Next slide, please. This is more images of things that unfortunately they have been enduring and experiencing since the beginning of this genocide. Next slide. I do want to apologize for the graphic nature of this stuff, but the reality is that, for me to filter out what might be uncomfortable for you is unfair because this is their reality that they're facing every single day. So I would be lying. I would be lying if I told you I wasn't haunted by these every day. Next slide. Well, some of the heroes that I witnessed out in Gaza are these guys. These are rescue workers. Have you guys seen rescue workers here in America? Rescue workers here in America, they walk in with full supplies, safety equipment, and all this stuff, right? Not these guys. These guys walk in barehanded, sometimes in flip-flops, if they're lucky, and a hammer. And that's all they got. And they go into these tight spaces and they try to rescue anyone and everyone as quickly and safely as possible. Next slide. The reality is that Gaza is still under siege. There is a deliberate denial of the most basic necessities of food, water, medicine, safety, dignity, and identity. This is still an apartheid. An apartheid that our tax dollars are paying for. Next slide. Before I play this is one of the EMS guys I was talking about. He works for the Palestinian Red Crescent, and he goes out there with nothing but a hammer, and he rescues people and puts his life at risk every single day. Because as we know, when you're in an ambulance, right, you're a moving target, right? Now, this is kind of funny only because this is how they are. Even in a very hostile situation, they still find ways to live life and enjoy life and smile. So I don't know if anyone knows who Akon is, but I told him he looked like Akon. Can you play the video, please?
In English.
Okay, sing anything. Wallah, sing anything.
I can't.
Wallah.
Next slide.
You're welcome, my friend.
So this is Brother Samir. Brother Samir is someone that I met on my first day at Deir al-Balah in Aqsa the second time around. And I don't speak any Arabic. This guy doesn't speak a lick of English. But if you just look at his facial reactions, his smile, you can never tell from his smile that this guy was experiencing a genocide. But this is just how they are. They're the most resilient people that I know. They have the most significant amount of faith and gratitude I've ever seen. Play the video, please.
Tell me your name.
Can you try to go back? Sorry.
Tell me your name.
My name is Samir.
Your name is Samir?
Yeah.
Where are you from?
I am from Gaza.
How old are you?
ليش عمره؟ 26.
26. 26. Yeah. Why do you want to take a picture with me?
نرجع ايش بدك الفيديو؟ عشان ذكرى ضل لما استشهد ضل to remember.
To remember who?
Yeah.
To remember me?
Yeah.
Okay. Why?
ليش؟
He just met me today. Why?
He want to take a photo because when he died to remember you. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
That's actually a poor translation of what he said. I
Tamam.
learned later. The actual translation is that he basically wanted me to take a picture with him so that I could remember him for when he dies. Right? It's crazy. Next video, please. This is we could play this video first. No, what are you doing?
Making dinner.
What are you using?
Yeah, not
Knife.
Using
not just for a surgery,
now just for surgery?
cutting vegetables and the fruit. Yeah.
So this is Nurse Saeed. Nurse Saeed was basically using a scalpel to cut vegetables, and as he insisted on sharing his meal with me. But you couldn't tell from his laughter and his smile that he was once a nurse in northern Gaza where he was abducted and he was taken as a prisoner, as a hostage in City Taman, where he was sexually, physically, emotionally, and mentally tortured for 3-4 months at a time. Ultimately, he was released because he obviously he wasn't guilty of any crime. But even then, he was still getting threats. Next slide. So this is some text messages that he was sending me one day. So out of the blue, he was sending me, he's like, "Hey, Zahid, how are you? I just wanted to let you know, right, that my life is being threatened and this is the reason why." Right? So he was telling me that they had contacted him. When I say they, this is the Israeli forces. They had contacted him, insisting that he works as a spy for them. And he said, "No, I'm not going to do it." Right. And when they threatened his life, to maintain his safety for his family and him, he was sleeping on the beach far away. So in case they do go after him, that it wouldn't impact his family. Next slide. Right. So I followed up a few days later, and he basically said that even though they stopped calling me, I turned off my phone. They're now contacting my wife, and they're telling me the same thing. So he, I don't want to curse, but he basically said, "F them, end this life. If they need to kill me, go ahead and kill me and bomb me. I don't really care." I was like, "Bro, are you crazy? What is wrong with you?" And then he ultimately tells me, he's like, "Bro, they don't know they're threatening me with what I wish." Like, how much more faith can one express? Next slide. This was a water delivery truck with a obvious gunshot right to the driver's side. The windshield naturally had to be just patched up so they can continue using the vehicle, but the driver obviously died. And this was just a water delivery truck. There was nothing else about it. Next slide. And, I was surrounded by kids. All these kids are laughing and smiling. The kid on the right, The reason I remember this kid on the right is, again, I don't speak any Arabic. He doesn't speak any English, but there was just this constant natural bond, just with human language. I mean, human body language. And one day we were playing outside in the ER, just goofing around, and he stops me. He grabs my hand and he points to the sky and he says, F-16 as a plane flew by. Then I said, okay, it's an F-16. Then, 5 minutes later, he stops me again. He goes, Apache. I'm thinking to myself, this is crazy. Why does this kid who's like 8, 10 years old, why does he know the difference between an Apache, a quadcopter, a drone, an F-16, an F-35? There's no reason for this, but that's just more evidence as to how their childhood is being robbed. There's no schools for these kids. There's nothing for them to do, but they're surrounded by these things all the time. We've all seen the videos where you see little children, toddlers, taking a doll as if they're about to go bury this doll in a funeral procession because they've seen it so many times, they're only reenacting it. That's not something any child should do, but it's become so normalized that that's what they're doing. Next slide, please. We'll skip this one. I just have stories for days, but with the interest of time, I'm going to skip through some. This is a 3D CT of a gunshot wound to the head, obviously. If I'm not mistaken, I believe this was a 16-year-old boy that took one bullet to the head and he died. Next, please. Maybe it's a blank. I don't know. All right. Oh, the car. So this particular car, yeah. When I first saw, actually, we'll skip it. I ain't got time for this one. So this is something that's interesting. I don't know if you guys can see what's happening in this particular video, in these pictures. Can you go to the next one real quick? All right. This is just a zoom of a zoomed in image, part of the picture that was the gentleman that was standing in front of a projector. Despite everything that's going on, that classroom was inside of a hospital where doctors and nurses were learning and bettering themselves. Despite everything that's going on, they still wanted to provide optimal care to their patients, despite the lack of resources. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a nurse and I have to go through annual competencies every year. And I would rather drive a pencil through my ear. But these guys, they live in a red zone, they commute through a red zone, and they come sit in a classroom voluntarily, unpaid, in a red zone to become better doctors, to become better nurses, to stay up to date with the latest studies, to become better, to provide better service for their people. It's English. No, no, no. They have the highest literacy rate. They're over 98, 99% in all of Palestine. Okay. Um, these are just some of the people that I met there. I mean, they're all smiling, all smiling. I just want to, I'm going to end this with, actually, I'm going to give one story here and I got one more after this. So you see the two girls in the top right. I just wanted you to focus on that. So these two girls, they were my little shadows. Towards the last 2 weeks of my last mission there, they showed up out of nowhere and they would always just pitter patter on the ER because them and their families would live on the hospital campus. And every so often I would hear some giggling and I would look around and they would just hide in the corner. They would point and laugh. And I was like, what the hell's going on? And then, after a while, we just became friends. And I figured out afterwards, they gave one good look at me and they said, listen, that guy's fat. He knows where the food is. He knows where the snacks are. right? And they weren't wrong. They weren't wrong. So whenever there was food and snacks available in the market, I would grab their hand. I would take them across the street to one, one of the stores that had food or snacks available, and I would buy them something from time to time. So this one time I went there, I grabbed them both. I said, let's go grab something. And I picked up three candy bars, three chocolate bars. So you see the two girls, one's obviously a little bit taller than the other. She looks at me like I'm crazy and, does one of these hand gestures like, what are you doing? I didn't know what she meant. She took two, she put them back. She grabs the one, grabs my hand, takes me to the counter, digs into my pocket like she's my mother, pays the people, and then grabs the chocolate bar off the counter, grabs her friend, grabs me, and we walk outside. And I'm like, what just happened? She opens up the candy bar, she divides it into three, and she said, this is enough for us. Don't waste your money. Now, obviously, she didn't say it in English. She said it in Arabic. I had no idea what she was talking about. When we went back, I got that translated, and I was flabbergasted that this girl, any other kid in America would be like, hell yeah, I want a whole ass chocolate bar to myself. But no, she was like, no, I don't want that. We don't need it. I have other stories, so many other stories with how generous these kids are, how thoughtful these kids are. Next slide, please. So this was in Mawasi, something that I experienced. I'll never ever like unsee this. All of my senses were violated when I went there. When I'm telling you, emotionally, I was moved. Uh, the amount of love that I experienced, but at the same time, the lack of sewage, the lack of cleanliness, the lack of sanitation. I'll never forget those smells. They rolled out the red carpet when I showed up. I mean, I'm not worthy. I don't deserve any of that. But that's just what they do. That's just who they are culturally. They just love to show appreciation more than anything else. Next slide. So this is one of my good friends, Dr. Ali Tarawi. And for those of you guys that have Instagram, if you guys want, you guys can follow him. I kind of recommend it, but this guy, because this guy is like an absolute literary genius. I'm just going to read something that he wrote one time. He says, everything here drives us to madness. Everything that we do or think of, no matter how simple it seems, exhausts the body and mind. They have destroyed our ability to express ourselves and left our survival to luck and coincidence. We are not required to be rational by the standards of this world. At this point, we're not even expected to be sane because what has happened to us goes far beyond the bounds of madness. We are not heroes. We are not more human than you. We are not invincible. We are not without limits. To the world, we are nothing but victims, or perhaps to some, we are nothing at all. We are trapped in a place so dark, even the last flicker inside our souls has gone out. We are not just tired, we are extinguished, stuck between the faint hope of reigniting or burning away entirely. We are not obliged to scream, not even once more, asking for help. And we should not have to endure even one more loss. We live on the edge of collapse, or perhaps we have already collapsed. And then he asks a question. Why does injustice get to live 100 lifetimes while the oppressed are barely allowed one? Why is injustice sustained for ages while the oppressed are denied even a scrap of bread when hungry? Next slide. This was a bullet hole to the driver of an ambulance. Obviously, the driver didn't make it. Let me see what else we got. Like I said, with the interest of time, I really apologize for taking up extra time, but thank you guys so much. I'll be here for any more questions. I apologize for all the crying and tears. Thank you guys so much.
Not on. This one is on. All right. Thank you so much, Zahed. And if you get a chance to ask him about more of the stories he has from Gaza, please do catch him. I got the entire slideshow, and I know he's got so many more things to share about his time in Gaza, stories that are so important. But we did kind of like Zah had mentioned, everyone here knows what's going on in Gaza right now. It is a very direct, confrontational, violent genocide. But we know that Palestinians have been experiencing Israeli apartheid and genocide in many other ways too. And much of the Palestinian diaspora actually has spent their childhoods growing up outside of Gaza and the West Bank. And so today we're going to be hearing from a local Palestinian activist, Suhaib, who grew up. Up there, you guys. Who grew up in a refugee camp and is now a local activist to the Kansas City area. And he's going to describe a little bit of his experience growing up in that way as well. So please welcome Sahib to the stage.
Thank you, everyone. Do you mind if I sit just a second? My name is Suhaib Al-Azza, Palestinian, born and raised in Aida refugee camp north of Bethlehem, where I'm sure most of you know that's where Jesus was born, and we're proud to call Jesus Palestinian. To keep this short and to the point, many of us Palestinians were slightly shocked of the reaction of the international community, especially after the genocide started in October of 23, because we were all sitting back and saying, we've been telling you this for the past 70 plus years. And with the help of social media, people are seeing and witnessing more of what's happening on the ground. But this did not start 3 years ago, and this has been ongoing since 1948. We always believe international law, human rights, human organization, human bodies, the United Nations. For those who know me, I have a massive collection of shirts. Most of them say on the back of it, 1948, and the 8 is in the red, highlighting the 194. The 194 refers to a UN resolution number 194. Because all these years we believe in international law, international community, human rights. But we've discovered this many, many years ago that we're helpless, essentially. We're standing by ourselves to fight for ourselves. And when we do, we get condemned, we get called names. But I didn't bring any data with me today. Because we thought data mattered, how many people were killed, how many villages were destroyed, how many cities were ethnically cleansed mattered to people because they want to see actual factual data. But we realized, especially in the past 3 years, that after 100,000 plus people have been genocided live on camera, if that didn't matter, if that wasn't proof enough, if that wasn't motivation enough for people, for countries, for leaders to stand up, to do something, to lift a finger, to allow one single bottle of water inside Gaza, I don't think any other data would matter at this point. But with that being said, I am, as I said, refugee from a small village north of, or south of Hebron, born and raised in a refugee camp where West Bank is experiencing a slow, quiet, ethnic cleansing as we speak. And again, it's been going on. And I want to leave space and time for my other panelists up here, so I'll end it with that, and I would be more than happy to answer any questions within the time that we're allowed. So with that being said, thank you for being here. Thank you for having me up here. And I appreciate anyone and everyone who speaks about Palestine, advocates for Palestine, thinks about Palestine. And I want to thank everyone being here. Thank you. You want me to stay up here or?
You can sit up here and you can come back up. Okay, so thank you so much for showing up. It wasn't sure that he was going to be able to make it, and then we were able to get him on the panel, and I think his perspective is so valuable to have up here as well. So I'm very glad you could make it. Make some time to go talk to him too. I'm going to say that about everyone. So the next person we have is actually on our Zoom, and he can probably explain a little bit about why he's on Zoom today when he was supposed to be in person, through no fault of his own. But my good friend Ziad, who is from Central Florida, actually his shop is about 15 minutes away from me. This shirt is from his shop, so thank you. And before I let him go, today is his twins' first birthday. So if on the count of three, we can all say happy birthday, Seyfola and Aisha, please. 1, 2, 3.
Happy
Seyfola and
birthday!
Aisha.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Z.
Hi, can everybody hear me? Yep. Good. Thank you guys for having me. Thank you, Veterans for Peace. Just a quick story on how I met them. I was heading to our local government building in our area here in Central Florida, and I saw a bunch of people protesting in front of our local congressman's office. And I had the pleasure of meeting Vance and Joy for my first time at that protest. And ever since then, they became family. And they became family for a few different reasons. The first thing was they were standing up for humanity. And they didn't ask, what these people, where these people were from, what their religion is, what their background is, what their DNA is. And that touched my heart because at the time, our family was going through a lot of things with my two nephews. One was a 15-year-old by the name of Muhammad Ibrahim, and the other one was a 20-year-old by the name of Saif Musalat, which I named my newborn son after this young man. In February of 2025, my 15-year-old nephew left Tampa and went to the West Bank to visit his family. While he was asleep at 3 a.m, there was pounding on his door. Over 20 to 25 IDF soldiers entered his home, blindfolded him, zip-tied him, and threw him into the back of a military jeep. On his way to wherever they were taking him, they were stomping him and beating him and hitting him on the back of his head and his torso with their guns. We're talking about a 15-year-old American that was asleep in his home and had no idea what was going on. While he was in prison, which he was there for 10 months, his first cousin, Saif, also from Tampa, went back to the West Bank to visit his family. On Friday, July 11th, 2025, just a few weeks ago, was his 1-year anniversary. They got news that there were settlers on his land and they were burning trees, breaking into homes, and causing destruction and chaos and things like that. He actually went to his land. This is not his great-grandfather's piece of land there, or his something that he got through hereditary things. This was actually his dad's land, and this land is in an area called El Batin, which is in a town called Sinjil. Upon arriving, the IDF had checkpoints set up, and they said that they were going to check on their land and see what was going on. And these soldiers told them that there's nothing going on, and they let them through. As soon as they went through, the soldiers disappeared. It turned out to be an ambush. Sayfullah was attacked and killed on Friday, July 11th last year. While he was getting beaten to death, an ambulance came to help him. The soldiers reappeared and blocked the ambulance for 2 hours and 40 minutes. Sayfullah could have been alive. He could be talking to you guys right now. Besides the ambush, the soldiers blocked the ambulance, and when they finally let it through 2 hours and 40 minutes later, the settlers also attacked the ambulance and the ambulance driver. So we're talking about these two American kids, a 15-year-old and a 20-year-old, whose mothers are sisters. And on July 12th, you have one sister at the newly dug grave of her son, who was there on vacation. And you have her sister who's telling her, you know, I'm sorry, everything's going to be okay. But in the back of her head, she saw what could happen to her son who's in prison. And we all know about the abuse and the torture that's going on in the Israeli, prisons. At this exact same time, my wife was pregnant with twins. And it was our first pregnancy after 20 years of trying. So, you know, God blessed us with our first pregnancy after 20 years. But here I have my nephew whose family raised him for 20 years. And he was taken away in a moment. At the same time, my other nephew was rotting in an Israeli prison. And me about to become a father, I kind of realized that I also have a responsibility to step up and see what I can do for them here in the United States and advocate for them and try to save at least one of them. You know, we couldn't bring Saif back, but Muhammad, the 15-year-old, was still alive. And, you know, we learned that he was innocent through his lawyers and things like that. But there was no communication. We weren't allowed to visit him. We weren't allowed to write him a letter. We weren't allowed to call him. His parents knew nothing about him. While he was prison in March, we got news that a 16-year-old had just passed away from our town that we live in overseas, our village, and they didn't release his name. You know, of course, there was 2 or 3 other kids from the same village in the same prison. We thought it was a 15-year-old American that, you know, from the torture, the starvation, and all the beatings and everything. It turned out to be a young man by the name of Walid Ahmed. Walid had starved to death and had a severe colitis issue. He died on the prison floor in the arms of my 15-year-old nephew, Muhammad. Walid and Muhammad went to the same school overseas. They were friends, and they happened to be cellmates. People like you guys and organizations like you guys stepped up for us. At every, you know, meeting I had, at every protest we went to, all the advocacy work that I've done, I've always saw joy and Vance and people who are there with you now, you know. And as Americans, the first brother who was speaking was talking about his blue passport. As Americans, you know, we weren't better than what was happening to the Palestinians overseas. But we're always reminded that the U.S. State Department's biggest concern is U.S. citizens abroad. We're always reminded that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. Or we're always reminded that, you know, the United States is always going to stand for Israel. And our question to congressmen and to senators and to our, you know, even our local officials was, what's this double standard about? If my nephews are American, you know, why is there no accountability? Why is there no justice? Why is there complete impunity to the Israeli government and to the Israeli settlers? Because we knew if they were Israeli or not Palestinian, that more people would come and help. We were on our own. And NGOs and human rights organizations and, you know, especially Veterans for Peace were always there for us. And November 27th, we were able to get Muhammad out of prison. And he had lost over 30 pounds. He had boils, he had scabies, He was mentally through a lot, physically through more. And we just thought an American from Florida and a child would be better taken care of by America's, best friend or favorite ally. Unfortunately, we know that's not true. And, we had to go through thick and thin to get him home. And he had to sign a plea agreement that he was guilty for throwing a stone, which he didn't do. But, there was no honor, no pride in keeping him there just to prove that we were right. We wanted to get him home and, have him healthy and be alive and continue his life. Thank God he's back here in Tampa now. His weight is back to what it was. Mentally and physically, he's doing good. It's just a short, summary of what our family went through. But I really want to focus on what the brothers were mentioning earlier. If this can happen to children, if this could happen to Americans, just kind of imagine if you don't have that blue passport, if you're not an American, that that the government, that the Israeli settlers can come to your home, kill you, take your livestock, destroy your crops, and move into your house. And you're the criminal. If you try to get in their way, if you try to defend yourself, if you try to protect your children, that you're either killed or arrested at your own home. That's not a democracy. That's not Judaism. Zionism isn't Judaism. Bombing children is not self-defense. And creating a new Holocaust in the name of defending another one is not being human or has nothing to do with humanity. And, we live in a apartheid state, like they've been talking about. I'm a dual citizenship. I was born and raised here in the United States. I also have a Palestinian citizenship. I can't travel to Jerusalem, to the Holy Land. I can't go to Tel Aviv and land at in an airport and get off of a plane. I have to fly into Jordan and then from Jordan drive to the border and go through the Jordanian border. After I go through the Jordanian border, I have to go through the Israeli border. After I go through the Israeli border, I have to go through the Palestinian entry, and then, so on. But if I was a Jewish American or an Israeli American, I can go back to Israel for free and get on an airplane and get picked up from the airport there and taken into a car and a free hotel room. And I could sit on a hilltop and point at a village in the West Bank and say, that's the plot I want. That's the acre I want. They call it a birthright trip. That you're promised that from God, and we'll fly you over here. Just pick where you want to live. Pick which home you want. Doesn't matter who lives there. It doesn't matter who has to die there for you to move in. And that's the reality. And this is even turning into a business now. In New York and in London, real estate agents are selling West Bank properties that are still the homes of Palestinians. So, like the brother said before, I don't want to take up a lot of the time. I first of all want to thank everybody for attending. I wish I was there. I had some travel issues that should be resolved by Monday, thankfully, where I would have been there in person. Joy's a dear friend. She's become a sister to our family. And she met Muhammad, my nephew, a couple occasions. And I don't know if Vance is there. Vance, if you can hear me, thank you for everything you guys do and continue to do. You guys stepped up. You guys are real heroes. Our politicians, the White House, our Congress and Senate need to follow your guys' lead. I sincerely mean that. You know, we had nobody to help us. We always thought that if something like this happened, that our government would approach us and ask how they can help. They turned the other cheek, and they have been for the last, 68 years. We live in an apartheid state with a two-part rule of law that if you're an Israeli citizen, you go to civilian courts. If you're Palestinian, you go to a military court, and you have a military interrogator and a military prosecutor. And it's not just them not considering us civilians, it's a lack of them even considering us that we're human. The courts are in a different language. The conviction rate, I think, is 99.6% in these courts. And most of the prisoners there spend 2 years in what they call administrative detention without even going to court. They can take you for 2 years, starve you, beat you, torture you, and say, oh, by the way, yeah, you don't have a court date, you can go home now. But like I said, I'll be glad to stay on if there's questions and answers. And thank you all once again. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks so much, Z, for showing up online, and for for being okay with me bothering you about the details about this, like very, very consistently. It's really a great honor to know you and your family. And Mohammed looks great now. The only thing that he's got going on is like the greasiness of a teenage boy. So like, he looks so much better, and that is such a blessing. We are going to start the Q&A now. I did want to mention that Fatima is also going to be joining us. She's also a local organizer through the local Kansas City area, so she would be able to answer questions about the Palestinian movement work she's been doing for the last 25 years as well. I'm not sure if Suhaib, if you'd be able to stay for like a couple minutes for a couple questions, but if you do have questions for Suhaib or Z, we're gonna prioritize those first, just because Zahed and Fatima, we should be able to talk with them afterwards as well. But we do have time for a few questions. If I don't know, do the panelists want to come up here, or you can stay where you are, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
My name is Willard Hunter, and I'm with Chapter 63 in Albuquerque, although I live in Boston. But my question is, the Israeli government has had a policy for several years of kidnapping young Palestinian children and putting them in prison. Do you have an update on that program?
Despite my colleague Suhaib believing that data doesn't matter, I'm a researcher, and so I like compiling data. Obviously, the point is that if we can't convince you with numbers, then what else could we use to convince? But to your question, this has been a long-standing policy, right? Like it's nothing that needed to be formalized. It is the common law practice within the occupied state to arrest anybody that they wish. But I was going to make remarks as my other panelists did, but I forego them so that we could move to the question and answer portion. So from my remarks, you would have gotten that right now we have So many pages. Currently, there are 9,600 Palestinian prisoners in Israeli detention. That is an 83% increase since October of 2023. Approximately 84 are women and 350 children. 350 children, minors, are being held. As Brother Ziad mentioned, typically they are held in administrative detention. Everybody is held in administrative detention for a period of time. Currently, there are over 3,500 people sitting in administrative detention with no charge, no trial, no access to legal services, and no ability, of course, to escape what is the unlawful terrorizing, torture, assault, rape, starvation, and other neglect that all prisoners experience. This, of course, does not include the more than 1,200 individuals from Gaza who have been abducted and removed into occupied Palestine, held as unlawful combatants, and therefore no statistics are typically given on them because they have been so dehumanized that they don't actually track or keep up to date with what happened for their families. So their families are very unaware of their status. And then just really briefly, many people saw this, but I just wanted it to be very clear that there is a death penalty law that was passed in March and May of this last year in 2026 that applies, of course, de facto only to Palestinians. So that is also something that we should be very alarmed about for those who have done death penalty work here and who do abolition work here in the United States, to know that that is something that's actually being instituted as a form of full legal policy in the occupation prison system.
Thank you very much. My name is Justin Loza, president of Chapter 46 in Veterans for Peace. Viktor Frankl, the late Viktor Frankl, is a Holocaust survivor, and he came up with logotherapy, and he put forth that people their will to meaning is what drives them. And so my question is, how do Palestinians, from your firsthand experiences, describe finding meaning and purpose while living through 70 plus years of displacement, war, and current genocide?
I think this can be summarized in a line of poetry by a famous Palestinian poet. His name Mahmoud Darwish, and he said, "There is something worth living for on this earth." And we all speak for Palestinians. We all live for Palestine. We live Palestine, we breathe Palestine, and we fight for Palestine. And we ask for one small, basic human rights, which we always wear proudly everywhere. We just want dignity and freedom. One thing that I discovered that when I came here didn't make any sense is anyone can get in their car and drive anywhere. In Palestine, I live in a tiny refugee camp where it's less than half a kilometer square, and we have over 7,000 people in that area. Leaving the camp alone is a story by itself, but let alone imagine going between cities. What geographically should take 10 minutes takes us 2+ hours, and it's getting worse and worse and worse with time, especially right now with all the settler attacks that we're witnessing in the West Bank. How do you find means? By fighting for what's right, by fighting for what's the minimum basic human rights that we deserve. One of the things that baffled me the most, even though I don't think it's gonna make sense to a lot of people, is the sky is so big here in the US. When I look up, I can actually see the sky. That's one of the very first comments that I made when I came here. And we hope one day we can see the sky that big in Palestine.
can give up time for my panel if you can have this go on for a little bit longer. I'm Zahid.
Track your work after this convention.
That's a great question. I hope that everyone took pictures of the QR codes that were in our brother's presentation, because that is a great way to follow many of the, I think, doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers who, of course, again, not offered any protection during this genocide and during this accelerated genocide. It's been a genocide for a long time, right? It's accelerated genocide. So that also the organizations with which he worked, PAMA, the Palestinian American Medical Association, headquartered here in Kansas City. We have it here in Kansas City, so please support their work. GLIA, another great organization that you traveled with, right? Heal Palestine, in terms of like medical healthcare workers for Palestine, has many wonderful chapters. I am the organizing director for the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, so we organize nationally, working to incubate local organizations and local campaigns, from the Houston arms embargo and Oakland arms embargo, that are literally trying to stop the infrastructure of genocide, and support to the absolutely rogue and illegal Israeli regime, as well as, of course, doing a lot of legislative and electoral work. And the two things that you can do right now from where you're sitting in your seats are to call your senators and to oppose the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, while it contains the provision that would merge the U.S. and the Israeli military. That is, it's a problem. It's a problem. I'm going to try not to curse. It's a problem. So right now it has passed in the House, unfortunately, and it is now set to go to the Senate. Call your senators, please. They come back to session at the beginning of September. Tell them that you want them to block the NDAA. The other thing that you can do, we have over 100 signatories now on the Block the Bombs Act. That is extraordinarily important as well. That would stop the provision of weapons, about 6 specific military weapons to Israel, which have been documented under international law, under U.S. law, to be the ones used in mass atrocities and war crimes. So those are two things that you can do right here, right now, in addition to medical and humanitarian advocacy, in addition to advocating for, of course, journalists and journalistic freedom and support and safety in Gaza. And of course, there is a plethora also of ways to get involved in West Bank advocacy. Sahib, can you maybe speak to that?
They will be here, folks. You have to. Please, right, you're all going to be here. There will be opportunities to meet and talk, and in between the sessions, we are running really, really late. I'm sorry, but yes, remember them. Let's give them a huge round of applause. I'm sorry, but please